everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Kirsty and this is Stuck in the Mud. As always, if you're finding my videos helpful in your OCD and anxiety recovery journey, please remember to like the videos and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. In today's video, I just want to discuss a bit about where I've been lately because I've been a bit quiet. I've not been as active on the channel and there's a reason for that. And I've discussed in older videos the fact that I am on medication for OCD and anxiety. I have been for many years, on and off. And especially after my last major bad time with OCD and anxiety, after I had my daughter 4.5 years ago, I really did hit rock bottom and I was put on a different medication than I've had before, which is venlafaxine, or you might have heard it called Effexor. And I was put on a very high dose actually. I was on like 375 milligrams. And I've been on that for some time, for probably at least 3 years. I was on the very high dose. I have discussed in past videos the fact that I wasn't happy on it for a number of reasons. One of the main ones being the weight gain. And this is something that I think we often face with medication for OCD and anxiety. A lot will come with side effects that can in turn emotionally affect us as well. You know, I went through very minimal, I'd say, going on it, but I would say with venlafaxine, I have noticed the fact that if I miss a dose or I forget to take it within a certain time frame, I will get extreme side effects like banging headaches, feeling very dizzy, and just feeling like very uncoordinated. That's how I describe it. Just feeling quite detached from myself. And it's quite scary side effects actually, because I've never had that kind of thing from any other medication I'd been on in the past. But so I wasn't really keen on that, the fact that it gave me such harsh side effects if I skipped a dose. And the weight gain really was an issue for me. I put on at least probably 2 to 3 stone while I'd been on it, which was quite a lot of weight gain for me. I'd never really struggled with my weight before coming on this medication. Maybe years ago I'd had some side effects like that, but this time it just seemed like I'd put on a vast amount of weight and it just didn't really shift whatever I did. I didn't feel like I changed my diet, because a lot of people will blame the fact that you're more relaxed, you're not as anxious, so you're eating more. And I can't honestly say that my diet changed after going on this medication, but I did notice a very quick weight change. It just kind of came on very quickly and I just couldn't lose it. Whatever I did, whether I did more exercise, really watch what I ate, nothing really made any difference to the fats I was gaining, and I just seemed to plateau. My just weight wouldn't go any more and it wouldn't go any less. So about a year or so ago, I decided to reduce my medication. I was feeling a lot better in myself, and I always talk about this in my videos because I am an advocate for medication with OCD and anxiety recovery. You know, I couldn't have probably done it without it, especially when I've been in really bad places with OCD and anxiety. You know, I really needed it when I needed it. And I often recommend the fact that the both go well together, whether you're having therapy and you're having medication, that the two often are the best combination to actually get the best results. For me personally, that has been the way. I'm not saying it's the same for everyone, because everybody's different, everyone responds differently. And if you don't want to go on medication, that's fine. You know, not everyone has to go on medication. But for me personally, it was the right decision. But I always say that when you combine the two together, especially with the medication, it makes it easier to do the work. And I think that's where I have been in the past, where I needed the medication to actually put that work in. And I always find it really dialed down the volume of OCD and anxiety to the point where I could actually function and put that extra work in with the metacognitive therapy or the, exposure and response prevention, I was able to actually carry that out and carry it out to the best of my ability with the effects of the medication on top of that. The two came together and it was the best combination for me. But after some time, I felt like I wanted to see how I'd go with reducing my dose because, as I said, I was on a very high dose, and I have reduced it a lot over the last 1 to 2 years. I've reduced down from 375 milligrams all the way down to 37.5 milligrams. So that's a massive drop. And I can't really say after reducing for that time that I've noticed that I've had really bad withdrawal effects. I really haven't. I've done it very gradually, and I've heard that venlafaxine Effexor is one of the most difficult antidepressants to actually come off. But I wanted to see how I'd respond. And I wanted to see if it'd have any effect on my weight, or if I'd suddenly notice an upsurge in my OCD and anxiety. But I haven't really noticed that because I feel like I'm much more aware of what I do now. Everything I talk about in my videos with the mindfulness and being aware of how I respond to intrusive thoughts, and the fact that I don't do the same behavior I used to. It's very hard to see that at first. When you're really in a bad place and you're really struggling, it's very hard to put that extra work in to resist the compulsions that you just feel so compelled to carry out. It's very hard to not follow that thought and try and figure it out, work it out, try and come up with some conclusion. It's very hard to do those things. But once I was on the medication, that became so much easier for me personally. But I wanted to see, and I can't really say I've seen an increase in those symptoms. Like I said, I do feel the medication dials down the volume sometimes, but because I am so much better at recognizing when I'm getting pulled into those intrusive thoughts, when I'm getting pulled into the feeling of the urge to carry out a ritual of some kind, I'm very aware of that. My awareness to that has definitely risen, and I can go, okay, hold on, I know what's happening here. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to allow it to be there as long as it wants, and it will fade away on its own. And for the most part, that does work. I definitely have seen increases in certain times of the month where I'll notice an uptick in these behaviours, or I'll notice an uptick in intrusive thoughts and the frequency of it. And that could be down to my age. I'm in the perimenopause kind of era. So maybe that has some impact on that. I do really believe hormones have an impact on the severity of our symptoms with OCD and anxiety. So I have noticed that. But again, I'm aware of the fact that that might be happening, and I'm aware that it's very easy at those times to get pulled in. But you stand firm, you hold that line. Yep, I know you're there trying to get me involved, but I'll do what I know I need to do, which is leave it there, allow it just to move through me and move forward with my day, because action is the most important thing for our brain to realize that we're not in that, that fight or flight. We're not, that safety alarm is not, it's going off. The safety alarm is like, you need to do this, you need to figure this out. But when we show our brain with actions that, I can carry on regardless of this and move through it, our brain realizes, I don't need to sound off this alarm anymore, and it will calm down. And that is what I have learned so much more in this last few years, is the fact when we allow these things, that they don't have the same effect on us. For years I've chased it, I've tried to figure it out and I've just feared everything. But once I let that be there, that fear, that urge to carry something out and figure something out and, just try and come to some kind of certainty over a situation. Once I let that be there and allow it, I realised it doesn't have the same control over me. I'm not giving it attention it's warranting, but I'm moving forward with my day, even despite it being there, it's definitely a learning curve, and it takes time. It's not a quick fix process. It takes time. These habits and behaviors have been with me my entire life, and I'm talking like 40 plus years. So it's going to take some time to unravel that. Not 40 plus years. I'm not saying it's going to take that length of time, certainly not. And it's a lot quicker to unravel than it was to develop these behaviors. It will unravel much more quickly than that. But we need to be consistent with it as well, and not kind of beat ourselves up when we have a bad day. We're going to have days, like I said, certain times of the month, I'll get more intrusive thoughts, but I'm aware of that now, and I know how to handle it when that occurs. I'll let it be there. I'll allow it, and just having that compassion for myself and knowing this has been a massive change for me. It's been such a revelation that if I don't fight it, it settles down, it calms down, and it doesn't have that level of control over me that it used to. But getting back, I'm digressing a bit, I'm getting back to the medication. I really did feel like I was making progress, and I thought, well, maybe I can come off this completely. Maybe I'll be fine without it. So I have recently decided to do that, and once I did that, I kind of got quite scared about coming off it, because I was scared about what would happen. And I also asked about going on a different medication, which you may be aware of, fluvoxamine, or Luvox is the other name for it. And I've heard it's very good for OCD. It's not one I've ever tried, and I thought if I could maybe go on that, maybe I wouldn't have the same weight gain problems, but it's just, if I have it at a low dose, maybe it'll just help me to keep that volume down and do the work I need to do to maintain my OCD and anxiety recovery. But once I was coming off the other one, and I'd lowered the dose even more so from the 37.5, I noticed quite a lot of symptoms, which I wasn't sure was withdrawal or going on to my new medication. And it's very important that you do follow your doctor's advice with this, in terms of switching medications. I was actually told to come off the venlafaxine cold turkey and start the new one, which is not the best advice, I would say. I think you need to really taper down on the venlafaxine very, very slowly. Some people can take 1-2 years to come off venlafaxine Effexor completely, because it has such severe, it can do, not everybody will experience them, but for some people they will have quite extreme withdrawal symptoms from it, which include dizziness, vertigo, which I experienced coming off it. Also nausea, the head zaps. I've never actually experienced that, but I definitely had a feeling of just like a detached feeling, and feeling very woozy in my head, and I just felt extremely tired. I just wanted to sleep most of the day, and that apparently is quite common for people coming off this medication. But then I was going on to a new medication, which also could have had side effects. So I wasn't sure if I was experiencing withdrawal from the venlafaxine or the side effects of the new medication. And I have to mention as well, the headaches I was getting was so severe. A lot of people experienced that as well. And that was one of the main side effects. My eyes were very sore, and I just felt very poorly with it. I just felt like I had flu. I had body aches as well. So again, I was unsure what was causing it. Was it the withdrawal from the venlafaxine, or was it the new medication? And so I just felt myself in a really uncertain place. Like, what do I do? Do I go back on the venlafaxine and just try and get some stability there? Or do I carry on with this and hope that the side effects will actually dissipate and actually get better? Because I was actually feeling really good in myself up until the point I had a spell of dizziness. And then the following week, 2 weeks, I just could barely leave the bed because I felt so sick and I felt very headachy. I just felt like I was having migraines all the time. So, and after having personally different things going on in my life, I just felt I needed some stability. So I decided to come off the new medication, the fluvoxamine, and stay on the venlafaxine a little bit longer at a very low dose. So this is where I've been. And actually the following day, once I'd come off the fluvoxamine, I actually felt better. The headache seemed to go. So it's all very uncertain why I was experiencing this. Like I said, could it be from the old medication or the new medication? You know, was I experiencing withdrawals from that one? And then because I was going on to the new one, it's very hard to say. And then you start thinking, have I got some kind of virus? You know, you just really don't know. And it's very, very hard for doctors. You know, my doctor did think it might be the new one. So that's where I'm at. I just decided I wanted some stability for now. And if that means just staying on a low dose of my old medication and waiting until I feel I'm at a place where things are settled enough personally in my life to carry out such a big change like that in medication, or do I come off it completely? It's very hard to know what to do. But at this point in time, I feel like that is the best course of action, is to stay where I was on my old medication. Things are okay. You know, could they be better? Maybe if I was on this new medication, but I won't know that because, like I said, these side effects were so extreme. Was that going to settle down on its own, or would it have persisted longer? And I just didn't feel like I was at a point where I could handle that. And I like you to comment in the section below, you know, what you feel about this, because people talk about medication like it's just easy. You know, people hand these out, but what do we do? You know, do we just go through it and hope the side effects will reduce, or do we persevere like that, or do we just hope we can handle it without the medication and move forward with just the therapy? You know, what do you all think about this? How do you approach your recovery? Do you do a bit of both, like I've suggested in this video, which I have always found is the best route for me? Or, like I said, what do you do? How have you experienced medication? Have you had many side effects with it? How have you experienced venlafaxine? Because I hear a lot of people do have side effects, and coming off it can be hard work. And that's where I've been the last few weeks. But now I feel like maybe I'm coming out of that again now, and things are starting to settle down. So I hopefully will get back to producing more videos, which I really want to do, and help people on their road to recovery from OCD and anxiety, because I'm really passionate about that. Something that's affected me for a large portion of my life. You know, I'm always looking for ways that I can improve and obviously help other people with their recovery as well, because I know how important it is, because I know how much this disorder can take over your life and really impact you and your family. And it's life-changing for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't understand how it controls your every move and it controls your life. But there is a way that we can live through this and have it not take over. You know, it doesn't have to take over and be in the driving seat of your whole life. We can do things that actually do work. And this is where I am now. I'm really figuring it all out. I feel like I've made so many leaps forwards these last few years, and I really hope I can pass that knowledge on to you guys too. So thank you for watching today. Let me know in the comments what you think about this, and I will see you in the next video.